Our guest is based on a very important topic, which is self-stigmatization, referred to the process in which individuals internalize negative stereotypes, attitudes, and beliefs about themselves. As we have always said, the objective of MASHI is to educate and inform the public on mental health issues. As we are aware, mental health is one of the issues that is usually locked in the closet, that its manifestations are open, yet we're in denial. Families don't want to say that their family member is ill mentally. It's attributed often to spiritual attack, to all kinds of reasons, but the real reason. So our objective here is to let the public know that, look, mental health issues are just like any other health issues. If you have a bone problem, go to see an orthopedic surgeon. If you have pregnancy issues, you see a gynecologist. And so too, when you have mental health issues, when you are unduly anxious, you have panic attacks, you are depressed, you see a therapist, clinical psychologist, and you don't get better, you see a psychiatrist. So that is the objective of MASH. Today, our moderator is our very beautiful daughter, friend, sister, Dr. Lillian Agbeyegbe, who is based in America. May I now yield the mic to her to introduce our guest,
Hello, and thank you
Dr.
for
Agbeyegbe.
hello, and thank you for joining us. I want to take your cue and continue with Prof before I introduce our guest and just share a little bit more about MASHI to give you some context. So, as you know, today we'll be listening to Dr. Mustapha Toyin Sanbe. But as Prof said, MASHI is an initiative that was founded by Professor Hope Gaga. It was a follow-up from the Help Us Soul Alliance, which was created as a Facebook group in the year 2018. And MASHI is now incorporated with the Corporate Affairs Commission as the Mind Thy Soul Help Us initiative. We focus as an organization on four core areas: collaborating with partners, advocating for change, supporting impacted persons, and educating communities. In our collaboration with partners, one of the partners we currently strongly collaborate with, Yaba Voices, we help to promote the activities in our communities. We advocate for change. As many of you may know, suicide has been a criminal offense in Nigeria, and advocating to move that needle and other things about how do we get mental health education in our school system. We provide a supportive community for people impacted by mental health issues. You can join us on Facebook, on WhatsApp, and we educate communities through a number of ways. One of them is our monthly webinar series, and this is one of them. We grant media interviews upon request so you can connect with us. This is January, and this is the first in our series. But throughout the year, we are going to be presenting, be having experts talk to us on mental health issues. So mark your calendars. In February, we are going to be talking about behavioral checks, a missing link in medical checks. We're going to be talking about death awareness and psychological preparation in March, depression, signs, symptoms, and treatment in April, the effects of bullying on mental health, prevention and support strategies in May, adult ADHD impact and management in June, impact of social media on mental health in July. We're going to be talking about managing grief and loss, healthy coping mechanisms in August. We will observe Suicide Awareness Day in September, have a presentation on mental health in the workplace also in September. In Mental Health Day, Awareness Day in October, we will have a presentation. And also in October, we'll look at the impact of sleep deprivation on mental health. In November, we will look at building resilience coping mechanisms for uncertain times. And we will end our presentations this year in December with a workshop on mental effects on self-imposed subjugation on women. You can join us. We are on Facebook, Help Us Soul Alliance. We are on WhatsApp, Mind and Soul Help Us Initiative. Our YouTube channel has been well, we've started it, we're just working on it, and you should be able to find our presentations in YouTube coming soon. If you're interested in collaborating with us or you want a professor to come and speak at your event, you can reach us mashihelp@gmail.com. And now I will stop sharing to let you know more about our phenomenal guest who is going to be speaking to us today. Today, our guest is Dr. Mustapha Sanbe. He has an extensive bio. I will try to read some of it, not all of it, in the interest of time. But just so that you know, Dr. Mustapha Toyin Sanbe is a prominent Nigerian academic and researcher who has made significant contributions in the field of education and psychology. Dr. Sanbe began his academic career at the Lagos State University, LASU, where he earned his bachelor's degree in education. He earned a master's degree in adolescent psychology and youth counseling from the University of Ibadan, a master of philosophy degree in clinical psychology, and a doctor of philosophy degree in clinical health psychology from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Dr. Sanbe has authored and co-authored numerous academic papers and book chapters. One of his most notable achievements is his pioneering work in the field of emotional intelligence. He has conducted extensive research on the concept of emotional intelligence and has developed a number of innovative approaches for measuring and assessing emotional intelligence in individuals. Dr. Sanbe has received numerous awards and honors throughout his career. He has been honored as Shiwaju Adini of Al Mubarak, amongst others. He has served as a consultant on many fronts. He has presented regularly on several media channels such as AIT Kakaki and the Network News. He is retired from the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital Yaba as a principal clinical psychologist. Dr. Sanbe is the first and current university counselor, Summit University Offa, North Central Zone of Nigeria. I'll yield the floor now to Dr. Sanbe. Thank you for joining us today. Please, if you're joining us, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. This is your first time and how you heard about this event. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Dr. Lillian. I'm indeed very grateful. Perhaps by extension, let's congratulate ourselves on MASHI as we're doing what World Health Organization is supposed to be doing and enjoining nations to be doing, especially on mental health, which is to strengthen information, evidence, and research on mental health.
Sorry, Dr. Sanbe, sorry to interrupt you. Please, I'd like to remind people to mute your microphones if you're not speaking, please, so that we can minimize interference. Thank you.
Thank you. Provide responsive mental health and social care services in the community. Strengthen effective leadership and government for mental health. I guess MASHI is doing well in this regards. Permit me to just guide us that during this interaction, we shall be looking at keywords in the topic: self-stigmatization and mental health. We'll look at what is stigma, the dynamics of stigma. We'll look at what's health, what's mental health, and so on and so on. Then we now look at how we can manage self-stigmatization so that we can enhance mental health, devoid of mental illness. It will be sufficient as a starter to let us know that there is no health without mental health. Just as World Health Organization has defined mental health as a state of well-being that allows people to cope with life stress, work well, and contribute to their communities. It is more than just the absence of mental disorders or disabilities. I think the underlying issue is it is more than just the absence of mental disorders and disabilities. Now, what is stigma? Stigma in Yoruba is a gun. In other words, isolation of some sort, just as we have some castes in the Igbo land that are called Ogbanjes. We have within the family or neighbors where we, for whatever reason, label a family or group of people as, even in religious circle, we try to label. This art of labeling tantamounts to stigma or stigmatization. It will not be out of place to let us understand that there are cultural issues underlying concerns about stigma. Just as in the Yoruba community where I come from, there is a dynamics of stigma between Ijebu and Egbas. Just as some of them will say Ijebu Oda, Egba Osunwon. In other words, Ijebu is bad, Egba is not good. Or Ijesha, which is known for tight fitness, and Ijebu, known equally of tight fitness. Now, within the Ijesha community, we have Ijebu Jesha. So in Yoruba jokes, we say, one Ijebu Oda Ijesha Osunwon, and someone is now saying it's from Ijebu Jesha. All of these are dynamics of stigmatization. Self-stigmatization. It is a construct that makes an individual to feel worthless, a little bit or grossly unfit. It is a spectrum. But here we are looking at it from mental health concerns. I have had in my interaction with the patients, they will ask me, why are there no people coming out to say they have had one form of mental illness or the other, especially in the African climate? More often than not, I have told them that let them mature to understand the dynamics of stigma. And the stigma itself on a community basis is not as terrible as self-stigma. That was what made me to be particularly interested in self-stigma instead of broad spectrum stigma. Self-stigma will lead to poor understanding of the psychodiagnosis or the diagnosis so ascribed in the mental illness arena. Self-stigma will lead to poor relationship. Self-stigma will lead to difficulty in functioning, just like commonly in Lagos. Before you say Jack Robinson in the public place, you will hear weary, meaning you are mad or mad person. More often than not, an individual who had been diagnosed or who had been to a mental health facility, upon hearing weary, would turn and have a feeling of who knows him or her in this area. This is what I mean, or what we understand generally as self-stigma. It may not be true, and more often it is not true that anybody knows him or her. It's just responding based on self-identification or self-labeling. More often than not, an individual who is having a concern that everybody is looking at him or her as having been to mental health facility for treatment would occasionally, even in his or her own world, want to justify, as we say commonly in our mental health facility, where the patient will say, "MASHI wèrè fún." In other words, I will show them that he or she has been to mental health facility for treatment. All of this will enhance or propel an individual to maladaptive behavior. It will not be out of place at this stage to let us understand that self-stigma has a deep root in cognitive distortion that will elicit emotional eruption, precipitating maladaptive behavior. What am I saying? If an individual has stigmatized himself or herself, the tendency to be quick to anger or unreasonably respond to concerns that are not his or her own concern, and thus making it easy, like a sellout within the community, that the individual is sick. Health systems and social support will be required to support an individual who has self-stigmatization and resulting in maladaptive behavior. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us look at what is the global phenomenon of mental illness. It is on record that in every 8 person, in other words, 1 out of 8, which is less than 1/10, which is more than 1/10, pardon me, is having a diagnosable mental illness. This is an international study and worldwide accepted research outcome in 2019, still very hot and fresh. It will be nice that we understand that there are instruments to measure self-stigmatizing person, one of which is self-stigmatizing thinking's automaticity and repetition scale. It is called, with an acronym, STARS. For us to move on and see that we can deal with self-stigmatization when we educate, as we are doing with this program. Educating the community will make an individual to understand and know that a condition does not define him or her. Just as I used to say commonly in most of my psychoeducational exercises, I say there is a thin line between sanity and insanity, and anybody can cross the boundary back and forth at any time. In other words, somebody who is diagnosed as mentally ill right now is not condemned to mental illness. If the person is adequately informed, appreciates his or her condition, will be able to function upon taking adequate treatment loaded with psychotherapy. Because more often than not, just like Professor Hope had said during the intro, people come down with psychopathology not necessarily due to ingestion of one substance or the other. Essentially, they are psychosocial, and that's why at international level, it is regarded as psychology is the backbone of psychiatry. We need to help the individual to define his or her state, to have a true identity without any ambiguity, to dedicate himself to everything positive. More often than not, an individual who has been diagnosed with mental illness will always be looking at somebody else and believing that the person is looking at him or her. I have a case that I saw on the ward sometime in the past, where the lady was anticipating that the pastor wanted to marry her. And during the ward round, I asked her, how do you know that? She said that the pastor, I fool my body well. And because psychologists can help to reframe and rephrase, and I said, I hope you meant your eye full pastor body. And she said, yes, as for our own eyes, our eyes full pastor body well. I hope you can see the reverse. Essentially, if the pastor had tapped the finger and said, somebody come from there, I won't be surprised if she's going to jump out to go and meet the pastor. These are issues. All matters concerning an individual is over-internalized and bordering on negativity. So there will be serious requirement for an individual with self-stigmatization to go through cognitive restructuring or cognitive behavioral therapy so that the individual's thoughts that are irrational, that are unreasonable, that are unsubstantiated can be challenged and motivated to move from point A to point B so that an individual can have access to the beauty of life and enjoy life. An individual with self-stigmatization is more likely to be self-isolating from even whatever matters or that could be important to him or her. Gradual exposure and integration will be required for this kind of individual. Inspiring and generating every positive energies that an individual will require to service the daily activities would be required to be imbued in an individual with self-stigmatizing manners and conduct. It will not be out of place, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to let us understand that people talk a lot on balanced diet. People don't talk about balanced mind and mental hygiene, environmental hygiene, cognitive restructuring that will lead to self-re-engineering as we are looking at from MASHI's perspective this evening, so that we can help deliver a healthy and sane community. There is need for self-reconstruction, self-re-engineering to enhance self-resurgimento in this individual that is exhibiting self-stigmatizing status. I want to take a pause here so that we can allow interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanbe. And that's very helpful. If you have been following us in the chat, I put in some notes. Dr. Sanbe has talked to us about stigma, and now it's the act of labeling people that can result in isolation. Stigma can make people feel worthless, and how self-stigma has deep roots in cognitive distortion, so that individuals can become quick to anger, respond to concerns that are not theirs. One way of addressing stigma, self-stigmatization, is educating the community, which is what we're doing right now. This level of education can help people address their patterns of over-internalizing issues and having unreasonable, unsubstantiated thoughts. And so when we talk about balanced diets and all the stuff, we need to move to a framework where we're also talking about the balanced mind. We'd now like to take your questions, comments, or contributions at this time. If you'd like to ask a question, if you have a contribution, please signify by raising your hand and we'll call on you. Any questions, comment, contributions at this time? While
Dr.
we're
Wu,
waiting
I
for...
expect you to have something to say. Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Lillian. I'm
Okay,
trying to
yeah.
motivate an individual for contributions.
Contributions.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
was going to say that while we're waiting for the contributions to come in, thank you very much, Dr. Sanbe. So when I think about self-stigmatization, and I think really appreciating the fact that you've said about how it can make an individual over-internalize issues, I'm thinking that there's a greater role that society can also play in self-stigmatization, looking at Bandura's social cognitive theory and reciprocal determinism, that if we live in a society that is quick to stigmatize people, then an individual can pick up that and when something happens to them and stigmatize themselves. But the challenge, isn't it the challenge that in stigmatizing your self-stigmatization and keeping in isolation, you're shorting yourself from the resources that can help you move out of that stigmatization? Would that be a correct thing to say?
Yeah. Yes, it will be correct. And that is why we talk about mental health is a community health. More often than not, the individual with mental illness might not be able to put a finger on his or her maladaptive behaviors. And I have within this to say there are things that are within our control and things that are outside of an individual's control. An individual that is self-stigmatizing will not be able to delineate boundaries. The individual who is self-stigmatizing will talk about the actions of others. We'll talk about, some people are talking about him or her without any verifiable source or reliable concerns. Even then, an individual cannot stop the opinion of others. So not creating boundaries, not knowing or being ignorant about mental illness is a critical concern. Do you know, let me shock you, that some family members will still be arguing with some experts that their family members, they are still talking, we are communicating now, but they will not be able to spotlight the tangential presentation of this client during interaction, except you now bring them in to observe the interaction with the patient. Then it will now be, more, sorry, we don't know, that is not sufficient. So I align with your view that the individual will be withdrawing, but it is the responsibility of the family members or significant others to present this individual as exhibiting maladaptive behaviors. And the professional will be able to do adequate diagnostic formulation. Thank you, Dr. Lillian.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Well, your questions, your comments, please raise up your hands. We're looking forward to you. To follow up on something you said about the family not knowing, I actually had an experience like that when I spoke to a family member and I called them to find out the status of the family member who was having a mental health issue. And they was like, oh, the person is fine. I spoke to the person. I'm like, did you listen when you were speaking to the person? Or were you more focused on the fact that the person wasn't naked and wasn't running around the streets? Because I'm like, if you listened to the person that I spoke to does not have the ability to make sentences that are coherent. They are making deductions that do not make any sense. And so mere listening to them, paying attention when you're listening to them, don't focus on the fact that they're not naked. Don't focus on the fact that they could take their bath. Don't focus on the fact that, they wore their clothes, they're not wearing their clothes inside out. Are they saying things that make sense? Is somebody telling you that, I woke up this morning in Lagos and then I got on the bus and then and when I got to, just before I got to VI, the police at the Ore Junction. It's like, no, Ore is not on the way to VI. So you can tell from what the person is saying that their things are not making sense. Or I went to the post office, but the bank manager doesn't work at the post office, and the things that are not making sense in their conversation. But you're just focusing on the fact that they're not naked and they're not working on the streets.
Correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Uwa, you've been called out. Professor Badru, if you have anything to contribute, we welcome your contributions. Dr. Caroline Ojo-Ajasa, if you have contributions, we welcome your contributions. And if you're listening and joining us from the first time, this is, Professor Badru, you have your comments in the chat. Please, can you unmute yourself and make your comment out? We'll welcome it. Yield the floor to you, Professor Badru.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Stigmatization, self-stigmatization, mental health, mental disorder, mental illness are very big issues that an hour or two may not really be sufficient to actually dilate and also discuss that. I've listened with great attention to the facilitator who has done justice to it, more so that he has actually dealt with it from the Afrocentric perspective, rather than just being esoteric and using Eurocentric and Americocentric perspectives. That for me is very important. You see, if you look at what a lot of people have said and written about stigmatization, is actually on undue discrimination. First, the first point is stigmatization. Like you said, it's like an label. It's like a label. It's like someone somewhere, puts it on that person. If that person now, when we're talking about self-stigmatization, is that person, either because he has had, or he has internalized, or he has been socialized to actually call himself or herself that kind of thing, or he has actually done injustice to himself or herself by that kind of self-stigmatization. And like I already said, that could lead to a number of things. Let me look at, for instance, Charles Cooley's, who has said, look, if, for instance, you're a guy or you're a man, the way you are likely to act when other men are there are likely to be different. But as soon as you see a lady or an opposite sex coming in to the environment that you are, it's likely to change things entirely. We call it, Charles Cooley has said about, it's like looking glass self, So for me, beyond what government has done about asylum, about stigmatization, about total institution, and so on and so forth, the important point is that mental health issue is pervasive. Whether we like it or not, there's a lot that we can pick from, and we must discriminate and distinguish between mental health and mental illness. And like you already said, there are quite a number of nosological tools or taxonomical instruments that are used generally, specifically and professionally to actually know whether a person actually has, a number of, either in terms of duration, either in terms of the quantum of the potpourri of the condition that will make that person to be diagnosed or have this kind of mental health issue. But more importantly to us, it's actually the mental health and the stigma. How do we in fact deal with that? For me, there are quite a number of myths that, like I did say here, that can assist an individual or that can in fact make that individual to go beyond what the limit of what the society has said. Like Dr. Suma has also said, there are quite a number of things that we can control. There are quite a number of things that are outside our control. But like I said, it's important for us to distinguish some of those things. And for me, either you're talking about self-stigmatization or you're talking about stigmatization imposed by the society itself or by individual or something like that, it's important for us to ensure that, like I said, mental balance is very important. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Over.
Thank you very much, Professor. We really appreciate your contributions. We're looking forward to it. Anybody else has anything to say now, please? Let us know. Lift up your hands. Dr. Sanbe?
Grandma should talk. Grandma should talk. Grandma Jonah.
Okay, and let's come off
I'm
mute and
sure
let's do our contributions. But just following up on what Professor Baju has said about how this is a societal thing. When we're looking at the numbers of attendance, for instance, in this webinar, and considering the fact that we have a WhatsApp group with members, we publicize this on social media. And this is part of how we change. I think Dr. Somber was the one that said mental health is community health. And so people don't need to think that I don't know anybody that has a mental health issue. I'm not going to go to that presentation. It has nothing to do with me. The way you respond, this is how we build stigma in our community. When people are feeling unwell, the possibilities you can work with doctors, work with professionals who can help you address issues of cognitive distortion. But when you are too nervous to even acknowledge that, because for a lot of people, you don't lose your mental health overnight. It is gradual. And you can begin to notice that, hey, I'm adding 2 and 2 together and I'm getting 24. What do? You don't wait until you add 2 and 2 together and get 2,000 before you know it's like a crisis. 2 and 2 and 24 is bad enough. And that's the time you need to reach out and talk to somebody, preferably a professional, because your family members might tell you, oh, it's nothing. Maybe you're tired or maybe you had a bad day in work. Those are totally different things. Your reaction when you're tired, your reaction when you had a bad day, and your reaction when you are having in mental health, when you're having cognitive distortion, when your thinking is distorted, those are different and they're on a spectrum. And you should be able to know and you should be able to reach out for help. But people will reach out for help because they're like, I don't want them to say I'm going for counseling. Counseling is not a bad word. Going for counseling is not a bad thing. Seeing a therapist is not a bad thing. We need to be able to do all of these things to be able to move on. I'm talking while I'm waiting for someone to speak. So if you have something to say, let us know. Miss Mary, I did see your comment about your internet problem.
Maybe, sorry, Dr. Lillian, maybe I should like us to have this as a take home. And this is, I used to tolerate lot.
I'm having internet problem, but it's back again. Sorry, Prof. I had internet problem. Yeah, I'm back now again. It's a problem in Germany now. They don't want to work. It's just the problem. 2 times the telecom company came here. They do nothing. Honestly, I'm sorry about that. I will listen.
So she put herself on mute. So Dr. Thunberg, go back to you. Anthony, we'll give you the opportunity to speak. Anthony, do you like to follow up on your contribution in the chat, Anthony? Okay, Miss Mary, you're mute, so you have to come off mute if you have a contribution to make. Can you come off mute? We can't hear you.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
you just wrote social isolation, poor housing, unemployment, and poverty are all linked to mental health. No, I don't agree to that.
Okay, let us. No. Why do you say so?
Yeah, because the people looting our money, they don't have mental problem. I was hosting ambassadors, first ladies, parents, Stella Agbeyegbe and co. My husband had the honor to sit with them. They don't have mental problem. I advised Stella in the year 2001 that any Indian coming to invest in Nigeria must bring medicine to Nigeria, healthcare to Nigeria. Not this what we call Afo-Shole, apple and carbonated water. That was what Stella took up. It was from my house in Germany here. So it has nothing to do with mental problem. It's just selfishness, corruption, wanting to live above themselves. I'm living in a small apartment now. I can live in a bigger one if I want, but I've kept this place for 18 years. If I want to steal, I will steal the whole Nigeria and buy off the whole Mahati in America.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't agree to that quote that unemployment is meta. No, it's not.
No.
If not, we're not ready to solve this problem. The problem that Nigeria is facing, young people are young and old and dying because of one cup of rice. Somebody moved to Shikafa. I speak Hausa fluently. It's not correct. So please, this is not the right way to put this thing. It's not correct. Please.
Well,
I'm not when I had that.
Miss Mary, thank you very much. I appreciate your contribution on that. I think that there is a relatedness too in the fact that when you talk about social isolation, poor housing, unemployment, and poverty are linked to mental ill health, it can be cyclical.
Okay. Now I understand you. Okay. You are telling me that poverty. Now I understand you. Yes, that can lead. I thought because of those people stealing money, because they have people, that is why they are stealing. Now I got the argument. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I get the argument. Yes, that can even lead to suicide. Not only mental something. Yes, I understand now. Yeah, I was just because of. I'm sorry. What is going on? People queuing are dying because of one plate of rice. That was why I misread that.
Okay, yes.
I'm so totally bad now. I can't even spell my name again. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, thank you very much for contributing. We appreciate that. And just to make those linkages, I mean, say for instance, and the stress that can come from unemployment and poverty can cause somebody to swing into depression, and that can cause the mental health. And people who have mental health issues, if they are unhoused, they're not able to pay attention to their mental health and not able to take their medication, it can actually worsen that situation for them. Dr. Sanbe.
Thank you very much. I was going to just add that here is an individual who, upon regaining self, proceeded like this. I used to tolerate a lot because I didn't want to lose people. Now I establish boundaries because I don't want to lose myself. It is very important for an individual.
Another reminder, please mute your microphones if you are not speaking, please. Mute your.
It is very important for an individual to own himself or herself, be able to think through weather storms and stress of life, and be very productive. Well-being, during my definition, using WHO definitions, you would have had well-being. Perhaps it will not be out of place to let me share tips that can enhance well-being. An individual should be optimistic, stay connected, accept self. I'm sure we can relate to that. Accept self. No two individuals are the same. So an individual may have pointed nose and big ears, and another one can have flat nose and big head. It still doesn't matter. What is important is understanding self and facing the reality as it were, and accept self as one is. Let's practice mindfulness. Let's exercise as much as we can. Let us show gratitude to whoever might have shown us kindness. In all circumstances, let us have hope. Let us master our environment and then find purpose or reason or reasons to be alive and enjoy life. With this, an individual will not park a jeep on Third Mainland Bridge and take a dive into the lagoon. If you are able to accept yourself and accept the reality of where you are, and you are keeping hope alive. I hand over to you, Dr. Lillian. Thank you.
Dr. Sanbe, thank you very much. Very insightful presentation on self-stigmatization, started by letting us know what stigma is, which we've gone over, and what self-stigma is, how mental health is really community health. We have a role to play as individual members of the community, and a signed up for us with some key components of what we can do to overcome self-stigmatization. Talk to us about being optimistic and staying connected, accepting yourself, know that somebody else might be somewhere else, but whoever you are and whatever you are should be sufficient for you. Practice mindfulness, exercise regularly. And you don't have to have a gym membership to exercise regularly. You can take a walk around your house, around your neighborhood, show gratitude. Show gratitude. Some people think that showing gratitude, it has to be until you've bought a house, until you've had 200 children, until you've gone abroad. But hey, do you know that when you wake up in the morning and you go out and you come back home, you should show gratitude, because there were some people who went out who got in car accident in that day. You're able to eat a meal. Maybe it's not a big food, but there's some people who didn't even get to eat a meal at all. You know, you have an outfit and maybe you wanted to buy the more expensive one, but you even got to buy this one at all. So find the things that whatever is going on for you, it's an opportunity. Every single day you have tons and tons of opportunities to be grateful. So show gratitude. Have hope in all circumstances. Things change. Things change. One of the stories that's fascinated me here in the United States was a couple of years ago. There was a land, and these people were in the backyard, and they found a pot of gold in their land. I'm saying to myself, oh my goodness, these people, they had land, so obviously they were not poor, but they were definitely not as rich as they became from finding that pot of gold on their land. Now, can you imagine if they had given up the day before and say, oh, we're poor and this is the end of the world, not knowing that there was gold that they were going to find? So have hope in all circumstances. Your present situation, there's nothing that says that that's your final situation. There's nothing that says things are not going to change. Have hope and master your environment. Find purpose to be alive and enjoy life. Find purpose to be alive. Find purpose to be a friend to somebody, to be a neighbor to somebody. Doesn't have to be. Again, I think one of the challenges that I'm not saying that you shouldn't have tall dreams, big audacious goal. We think that everybody should have big audacious goals. But also just find this one thing that you know for sure you're doing and you can derive satisfaction from and pleasure from, and that keeps you moving to the next level. Thank you very much for Dr. Sanbe for kicking us off. This is our first in our series. As we said, we meet every last Saturday of the month unless something else is coming on, and we'll let you know. You can join us. Again, let me share some of all of those things at our other seminars coming up through the year, through the year. So if you joined us after we started, we have presentations scheduled for February, March, April, May, June, July. Those presentation titles, as you can see on the screen right now. And we go into August, September, October, November, December. We're also having those. If you'd like to follow us on connect with us on Facebook, connect with us on WhatsApp. Our YouTube channel will be up and running very soon. And you can email us at mashihelp@gmail.com. Questions, comments. We look for opportunities to collaborate, interviews. You want us to do a presentation for your school, for your community. All of those things are things that we would like to do. Lucy Jonah, would you like to speak? I see you have a comment before I turn it over to Professor Igaga. Lucy Jonah, would you like to make your contributions on with the microphone off? She wrote that self-stigmatization can be a result of a bad past. It is necessary for people to know how to forget the past and live for the future. Very true. Professor Igaga.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very efficient presenter coordinator. Thank you. Dr. Sanbe, thanks also for speaking directly to the issues. I want to thank everybody here. This is how we roll. This is what we have decided to do, to create awareness, inform people about mental health. We are an NGO, and we also solicit for funds. We post the account number of MASHI in the chat box. So whatever you have, nothing is too small, nothing is too big, to help our operations. Once again, I thank you, and I yield the mic to Dr. Lillian Agbeyegbe.
So thank you very much. We are getting that account number. Sorry, I didn't put it up, but I think Dr. Gaga is helping me with that. Welcome contributions. You say, what do we need contributions for? As you're coming now, we've come on the internet. We have a provider who provides for us. We are on social media. We look for opportunities. We engage with other partners. We look for opportunities to change policies. So if there are any policies that you're working on and you'd like us to work on that with you, we can come and give testimony, or we can speak letter of support, however it is that you want to contribute, that works for us as well. If you are affiliated to a school, to a faith community, to a cultural community, people's knowledge needs to change. And the only way people's knowledge is going to change is the information that they receive. And so we were willing to come out and speak, and we can speak on diverse topics related to mental health. And so thank you for joining us. For all the people joining us from, I know some people joined us from Lagos, from Ibeju-Agba, Lagos, and joined us from Agbo Delta State, from Lekki, Lagos. And I'm joining you from Silver Spring, Maryland. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next month at the same time, and we look forward to you joining us. Please invite your friends, invite your family. Account number, UB account number is 1021-635466 MASHI, and that works for us. And Funmi Shotona is joining us from Abeokuta. And Miss Mary's joining us from Germany. Obviously, she spoke earlier on. Thank you all for joining us, and have a lovely rest of your day and a lovely rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.